Do you have older daughters? The mic's on. Oh, please. No. See, that's where Girl.
Well, welcome everybody, and I want to start by thanking the First Lady for joining us today, and thank you for your support of this incredibly important legislation, the Take It Down Act, which has already passed the Senate unanimously, and I am hopeful that the House will soon take it up and pass it and put it on the President's desk to be signed into law to protect young women and young boys and all of those who are being victimized across the country. I also want to thank our brave victims and victim advocates who are here, Elliston Berry, Francesca Mani, Brandon Guffey, and Breeze Liu. Thank you for being here. Each of you have endured the unspeakable, and your courage standing up and speaking for others is really remarkable. I also want to thank Stefan Turkheimer with RAIN for your advocacy and support on this issue as well. Thank you for your leadership. And of course, I want to thank Senator Klobuchar, who is the lead Democrat sponsor in the Senate, and Representative Salazar and Representative Dean, who are the lead sponsors in the House, who've worked alongside in this important bipartisan legislation. If you're a victim of revenge porn or AI-generated explicit imagery, your life changes forever. Most likely, you've been targeted by someone you know, and you're likely struggling to have that material removed from the internet. Disturbingly, many of these victims are teenagers at American high schools who are facing a surge in AI-generated sexual images. Hundreds of teens, often targeted by their own classmates, are enduring senseless psychological harm, knowing that these fake images exist and they're still out there. And in many cases, there's no recourse for these teenage victims. But this issue extends beyond high school. There are thousands of cases where predators have used non-consensual intimate images to extort victims, both sexually and financially. And the results can be even more traumatic than financial loss, as we'll hear today. In dozens of instances, parents and siblings have suffered unbearable pain, having lost their child or their brother or their sister to suicide because the victim felt there was no way out from sextortion. Outside of high school, many adults are also dealing with the very real and dire consequences of having their sexually explicit images shared online without their consent. I have heard from victims of sexual abuse, of rape, of human trafficking, who strongly support the Take It Down Act because they desperately want some of the most traumatic moments of their lives taken off the internet. The Take It Down Act empowers victims across the entire United States. It makes it a felony for these deviants to publish any non-consensual intimate images, including fake, lifelike pornographic images of real people. Just as importantly, our bipartisan bill requires big tech to have a notice and takedown process so that every victimized American, not just the rich and famous, but everyone, has a right to get these disturbing images taken offline immediately. We are today one step closer to making this dream a reality. Just 3 weeks ago, the Senate unanimously passed the Take It Down Act. Now it goes to my House colleagues, and I have every assurance and confidence that the House will take this up, pass it, and put it on the President's desk so that we can protect the victims of these predators. And we're very excited to be joined today by the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump. Mrs. Trump has long been a champion for protecting our nation's children with her Be Best initiative. And I can think of no more important issue for our First Lady to lean on than protecting children online. Your success will mean our children's success and healing for thousands of victims. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump. Well.
Thank you so much, Senator Cruz.
I think that should be on.
Is it on?
It's not very loud.
Good afternoon. I'm here with you today with a common goal: to protect our youth from online harm. The widespread presence of abusive behavior in the digital domain affects the daily lives of our children, families, and communities. Addressing this issue is essential for fostering a safe and supportive environment for our young people. I hope today's roundtable builds awareness of the harm caused by non-consensual intimate imagery, and eventually the approval of the Take It Down Act bill in Congress. In today's AI-driven world, the threat of privacy breaches is alarmingly high. As organizations harness the power of our data, the risk of unauthorized access and misuses of personal information escalates. We must prioritize robust security measures and uphold strict ethical standards to protect individual privacy. As First Lady, my commitment to the Be Best initiative underscores the importance of online safety. In an era where digital interactions are integral to daily life, it is imperative that we safeguard children from mean-spirited and hurtful online behavior. Ensuring their protection is not just a responsibility, but a vital step in nurturing tomorrow's leaders. Here with us today is Alison Berry, a 15-year-old brave young woman. Alison Spears used AI to create non-consensual intimate images of her and then spread the images across social media. They superimposed her face into pornographic content without her consent, solely to humiliate her. And authored, Alison's family contacted the social media companies for help. Their efforts fell upon deaf ears. Ultimately, the fake images circulated worldwide. It's heartbreaking to witness young teens, especially girls, grappling with the overwhelming challenges posed by malicious online content, like deepfakes. This toxic environment can be severely damaging. We must prioritize their well-being by equipping them with support and tools necessary to navigate this hostile digital landscape. Every young person deserves a safe online space to express themselves freely without the looming threat of exploitation or harm. To the brave survivors of NCII, your strength inspires the courage in others. To the advocates, your voices power our youth and hopefully bring change. And to the families, your unwavering love is a pillar of resilience. Thank you again to Senator Cruz, Speaker Johnson, House Majority Leader Scalise, Representative Salazar, Chairman Guthrie, Chairwoman McCain, Chairman Hare, and Representative Kahan for being here today and for your dedication to this important cause. I was heartened to learn that Senator Cruz and Senator Klobuchar united to prioritize this fundamental matter. I must admit, however, I expected to see more Democrats, leaders with us here today, to address this serious issue. Surely, as adults, we can prioritize Americans' children ahead of partisan politics. I urge Congress to prioritize the passage of the Take It Down Act bill. This legislation is essential for addressing the growing concerns related to online safety, protecting individual rights, and promoting a healthier digital environment. By advocating this bill, Congress can take an important step towards ensuring accountability and fostering responsibly online behavior. The Take It Down Act bill represents a powerful step toward justice, healing, and unity. Thank you.
And thank you very much. I want to thank the First Lady for being here, and your presence and your leadership on this issue is incredibly important, and I'm confident it's going to play a critical role in accelerating the passage of this bill and getting it passed into law so that we can protect all our kids and young women and young men across the country. I now want to turn to the leader in the House, Representative Salazar, for her remarks.
There. Thank you to all of you, and thank you to the First Lady of the United States, to Senator Cruz, for having taken up this cause. The force, as Senator said, the force of your presence, Madam, is not only going to save children's lives, but will also make this legislation the law of the land. I have no doubt that the House of Representatives will make this law a priority, as I have spoken to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. So thank you for making our jobs as legislators a lot more effective. As the Senator said, the name of the legislation that we're presenting is called the Take It Down Act. Its mission is very simple. It's profound and long-lasting. It stops cyber abuse. It prevents bullying one child against another. Even more important, is going to prevent suicide out of shame. It is outrageously sick to use the images, the face, the voice, the likeness of a young, vulnerable female, to manipulate them, to extort them, to humiliate them publicly just for revenge or just for fun. That is why we created this bill, and it's going to stop the abuse throughout social media. It is widely known that 99% of the time, the victim, most of them girls, don't even know that their faces, their bodies, their intimate parts are being circulated around the internet in fake, compromising pornographic images. But perception is reality, unfortunately, and even though these images do not belong to them, they are paying the price dearly. So they see it, they live it, they have to suffer it, and they don't have any recourse, as the Senator said, up until today, up until now. Our bill, the Take It Down Act, finally is sending a very big message to big tech that they have to bring down these images, fake images, within 48 hours. No more time than that, no more excuses. If not, big tech then will be just as guilty as the aggressors. Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok will have to comply within 48 hours when the victim demands that they take down those pornographic images. Now our messages to the bullies, to the perverts, to the predators. If you dare to do this to another innocent child, you are going to go to prison. You will serve jail time. That will be a great place where you can sit and ponder what you did and be consumed by your conscience. Up until now, the parents of victims found that the schools, they couldn't do anything. The police couldn't do anything. Nothing. Big tech couldn't do anything, according to them. No more. This legislation has taken the power away from the aggressors and the accomplices and have given it back to the victims and their parents. What a great honor for me to be part of this initiative. Thank you very much, and thank you, Madam, for making this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Salazar, for your friendship, for your leadership on this important issue. I now want to introduce our victim advocates who will share their stories and explain why it is important that we urgently pass the Take It Down Act. Here with us first are two teenage victims of AI-generated sexually exploitative images. Miss Elliston Berry of Aledo, Texas, and Miss Francesca Mani of Westfield, New Jersey. Both of these young ladies were victims of virtually the identical crime within weeks of each other. Elliston was just 14 years old when a male classmate of hers took an innocent photo off her Instagram page and used an app to create an explicit image, a deep fake AI, that in turn was sent to her classmates at school. Elliston helped inspire the Take It Down Act. And she's a Texan, and she and her mother contacted my office and relayed what happened, and we were horrified, and she was the initial inspiration for writing this bill. And Melania, I'll tell you an amazing aspect. When I was sitting down with Elliston and her mother, Anna, who's here as well, I asked in my office, I said, what's happened to the images? And they looked at me with enormous frustration, and they said, they're still up. It's been 9 months. Elliston's mom said she had called Snapchat, she'd emailed them, she tried repeatedly, take this garbage down of my daughter. And she had gotten no response at all, no movement. I turned to my staff in my office that afternoon and I said, I want you to get the CEO of Snapchat on the phone today. I want those pictures down today. Within 2 hours, they pulled them down. Now, it should not take a sitting senator or a sitting member of Congress picking up the phone to get a picture down or a video down. It should be the right of every American. Every teenage girl victimized should have the right to get this garbage taken down, and this bill will give them that right as a matter of federal law. And with that, Elliston, if you would share with the First Lady and share with everyone here just what happened to you just tell your story.
Thank you, Senator Ted Cruz. I was just 14 years old when a classmate created AI nudes of me from an innocent social media picture. I was 14 years old when I was violated all over social media, and I was just 14 years old when my innocence was stripped away. October 2nd, 2023, I woke up to messages from a friend notifying me that these photos of me were circulating social media. Pictures from a past Instagram photo with a nude body and my face attached, made from AI. Fear, shock, and disgust were just some of the many emotions I felt. I felt responsible and began to blame myself and was ashamed to tell my parents despite doing nothing wrong. As I attended school, I was scared of the reactions of someone could recreate these photos, and I lived in fear that they would resurface and that they would get brought up as I attended school. The school was little to no help and said that it was out of their control. I not only blamed the classmate Big Tech. The boy used a Google app called DNGG that existed to remove articles of clothing from a photo available for all ages for free. While that app is no longer available, thousands of other apps similar are available. Additionally, social media needs to be required to take action. It wasn't until Ted Cruz's office heard my story and reached out to Snapchat personally, and then my photos were removed. We need to hold Big Tech accountable to take action. I came here today to not only promote this bill, but to fight for the freedom of so many survivors. Millions of people, male, female, teenage, children, kids, all are affected by the rise of this image-based sexual abuse. This is unacceptable. The Take It Down Act will give a voice to the victims and provide justice. I want to say thank you to Senator Ted Cruz and his team. Thank you to all the advocates pushing this bill and this legislation. It is vital for the growing of technology. The situation is bigger than politics. This bipartisan bill is to protect America's children. Thank you to the First Lady and the House leadership for understanding how important this issue is and taking time to learn about this vital piece of legislation. I share my story to give victims a voice they never heard and had changed this horrible situation into something good. Thank you to everyone who is supporting this. It is so inspiring to know that my voice is being heard, giving hope to not only me, but to all the many people that have been affected by this. It is truly so amazing how this awful situation has turned into good. Thank you.
So I'll tell you, Elliston and I and her mother several months ago had the opportunity to do a number of TV interviews, and we went on Good Morning America, and at the end of it, I think Good Morning America was ready to offer Elliston an anchor spot. I think the folks interviewing us got nervous for their jobs because thank you, both you and your mom have enormous courage, and you're standing up and speaking the truth, and it has a power to change and protect others. What is remarkable is in the exact same month that Elliston was being victimized, 2,000 miles away in New Jersey, Francesca Manni was going through the exact same situation. She was also 14. She was also a target of this same predation. And like Elliston, Francesca has spoken out about her experience. Both Francesca and Elliston testified at a field hearing that I held in Dallas. Francesca recently appeared on 60 Minutes to tell her story, and she's another incredible young woman, along with her mom, who are standing up and fighting to protect others. And so, Francesca, thank you for being here as well, and would you please tell us what you experienced?
Okay,
Is it on? Okay. At 14 years old, my classmates created deepfake images of me and other girls at my high school. The most disturbing part, not just that they thought it was okay, but that the school failed to hold them accountable. While the girls' names were announced over the intercom, the boys were quietly pulled from their classrooms, a blatant violation of privacy and disrespect towards us. Despite the seriousness of the incident, only one boy received a one-day suspension. 2 years later, those responsible are still in my school, representing in team sports as if nothing ever happened. That is not okay. When I asked my school why they weren't using the code of conduct or HIP policies, their response, they need to be updated to include AI. My response was, then update it. It took them 1 year to make changes, yet my mom's lawyers created an updated version within a week of that incident. The HIP investigation, which was supposed to take 10 days, dragged on for almost a year, completely unacceptable. The school's only response to the community was a single email dismissing the issue as widespread misinformation. This silence sent a dangerous message. To the girls, you are not worth fighting for, and to the boys, what you did is okay. I expected clear and decisive action. The school should have said, this is not okay and you are expelled. In school, the question should not be about legality alone. It should be about what is right, what is ethical. Teenagers might not know all the laws, but they do know when something is wrong. Schools need to take immediate, serious action to ensure that AI exploitation, harassment, and deepfake abuse are met with real consequences. We need laws, and with the help of Senator Cruz, Congresswoman Salazar, and now the involvement of you, the First Lady, I truly believe we are on track to passing a federal law to protect women and children. Even though AI exploitation can happen to anyone, 96% of victims of AI misuse are women and children. So we are seriously vulnerable, and we do need laws. The Department of Education must finally step up and issue clear AI guidelines on how schools should handle these incidents nationwide. AI isn't going anywhere. It's here to stay. Schools must be proactive, not just in teaching students how to protect their image or avoid committing a crime through AI misuse, but also in teaching how to use AI as a tool for advancement. Throughout my advocacy, I have met incredible organizations, leaders who are focused on legislation and regulation, but that's just one part of the conversation. Since being named one of Time 100's most influential people in AI, I've had the privilege of meeting brilliant minds using AI to advance society in research, medicine, education, climate control, art, and more. Yes, AI needs regulation, but we also need to acknowledge its potential and prepare the next generation through AI literacy programs in schools ASAP. I love JFK's speech, where he challenges us to ask what we can do for our country. Lately, feels like everyone is asking what the country can do for us. With AI, we should all be asking, what can I do by myself to advance and empower my future using AI? Now, let's be clear, every aspect matters, but it must start with legislation. A strong federal law is crucial, one that shifts powers back to the victims, ensuring they can remove harmful images within 48 hours. That's not just policy, that's real, tangible protection. That's Take It Down. We need this to pass. Thank you.
Francesca, thank you also for your courage and your strength and your clarity. Both you and Elliston are inspirational, and we're proud to have you with us today. As Francesca mentioned, over 90% of the victims of non-consensual intimate images are either women or young girls. It doesn't just affect teenagers. Adults can also be victimized. And Breeze Lou, when she was 24 years old, she got a nightmare phone call from her friend that an explicit video of hers had been posted on a pornography website. That phone call started a series of events in which Breeze would rise to lead the fight for the removal of these abusive images. Breeze, thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership. Tell us about what you experienced and what you've done to try to stop it.
Thank you. It is both humbling and empowering for me to be here today. On behalf of millions of survivors, I'd like to thank you for giving us a voice and shining a spotlight on this critical issue. We stand at a defining moment in human history. Artificial intelligence has given us unprecedented power and brought profound transformation. But with extraordinary technology advancement, we also face immense challenges. In April 2020, my life changed forever. A friend called to tell me that a video of me was circulating on Pornhub. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I have never even visited Pornhub, but when I clicked the link, I saw my face on a pornographic video. The devastation I felt is indescribable. I was humiliated, dehumanized, and overwhelmed with shame. But when I sought help, the system failed me. I was victim-blamed and slut-shamed, while the perpetrator faced zero consequences. As more videos spread to hundreds of malicious websites, I nearly lost everything. My dignity, my reputation, and I almost lost my life. For every victim, there is a moment when the ground disappears beneath you, when the shame, the violation, the loss of control, it all consumes you. And then when you reach for help, you find there is none. No accountability, no recourse, just a system that shrugs and says, it's too complicated, it's impossible to fix, the internet is too big. But America is a nation that does not accept impossible. In 1969, an American set his foot on the moon and said, that is one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. This nation did something that was once believed to be impossible. With computing power equivalent to a basic calculator, we accomplished one of the greatest feats in human history. When it comes to ending online violence, America must lead. The Take It Down Act is an essential first step. It creates accountability where there was none before. It ensures that victims can have harmful content removed swiftly, lifting the unbearable burden survivors have long carried alone. If legislation is the foundation, technology is the bridge. History will not remember us for the tools we build. It will remember us for how we choose to wield it. The internet, AI, the digital tools are not inherently good or evil. They reflect the values of those who control them. This is a tech-enabled problem, and it requires a tech-enabled solution. The same technology that created this issue can also power its solution, and this is why we find hope. And this is what my work at Electo AI is about, building human-centered AI to combat AI abuse. To those who say this problem is too big, I say this: America is not in the habit of backing down from hard fights. Today, the smartphone in our pocket holds computing power thousands of times greater than what NASA used during the Apollo program. We have the technology to fix this. We have the legislation to create accountability. Now we need the will to act. This is a nation that has always led the world in shaping the future, not waiting for someone else to do it first. The future is being decided now. So let us rise to this challenge, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. It is time to reclaim our humanity in a digital age. Let history show that when faced with injustice, we did not stand idly by. We fought, we built, we progressed, and we won. Pass this bill. Take action. Let us build a digital future that is safe, just, and worthy of the generations to come. Do not let my yesterday become their tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you.
Breeze, thank you very much for your courage and your clarity. What you experienced and Elliston experienced and Francesca experienced was a grotesque violation of your privacy and your fundamental rights. And each of you has used that pain to advocate for others and to try to stop someone else from being victimized the way you have been. Although the vast majority of the targets of this abuse are women and young girls, young boys can be targeted as well. And the FBI has warned that there's a growing threat of sextortion deliberately targeting minors online, where evil people use either real or fake explicit images to extort their victims both sexually and financially. And in some instances, the results can be even more devastating and catastrophic. And that was the tragic situation that South Carolina State Representative Brandon Guffey and his family experienced in 2022. Representative Guffey, would you please share what happened with your son?
Thank you, Senator Cruz. July 27th, 2022, I lost my oldest son, Gavin Guffey, to suicide. We quickly found out that he was being extorted online, that someone pretending to be a young female at another college requested images to be shared back and forth, and as soon as he shared those images, he took his life. It was an hour and 40 minutes from the time that he was contacted until the time that he took his life. At that time, I had never heard of the crime of sextortion. I was always a more liberty-minded politician, even though I hate to say that word. And, you know, I wanted freedom as much as possible. But as I started looking into this, I started to see that big tech operates, and they are the equivalent of big tobacco of today's generation. The account that targeted my son, that caused him to take his life, was taken down online once Homeland Security reached out. However, they left the additional accounts up. If I send a friend request, I can choose remove this account and any other accounts associated. Yet they left these other accounts up, and those other accounts began to extort my 14-year-old cousin, my 16-year-old son who had just lost his brother, and myself as well, going as far as sending a message saying, "Did I tell you that your son begged for his life?" From that day forward, I have made it my life's mission, politics or not, to fight to protect children online. Since December of 2022, whenever I took office, within 4 months, we were able to pass Gavin's Law in South Carolina, which criminalized digital sextortion. And the first person that we were able to convict under Gavin's Law was actually under an AI photograph. I have helped thousands of children since then. Matter of fact, I've dealt with 3 within the past 48 hours of families that are reaching out, that are being extorted in these situations. I've worked with groups such as Nkosi and NCMEC here on the Hill. I have showed up with parents, and unfortunately, the amount of parents that are losing children are growing daily. Since my son took his life, there's been 40 other teens that are public about this. I can tell you there's more than a dozen that I know of that just do not feel comfortable sharing their stories. But I'm witnessing teens constantly take their life. And as you said, Senator Cruz, trying to get an image down. Now, granted, I'm just a state representative, but I have a little bit more pull than the average citizen, and I'm able to get some of these taken down occasionally. But that's generally not the case. And with something such as Take It Down, it would allow families to be able to have those images taken down and to have the voice that my son did not have. There was no recourse of being able to know, to be able to get these images down. And in his mind, no one had his back, and this wasn't talked about. So since then, it's been my mission to speak up, scream it from the mountaintops on how we have to hold big tech accountable, and Take It Down does that. So for everyone involved, I really thank you for your involvement and urge for passage within the House.
Brandon, thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking out. You have endured every parent's nightmare. There is not a parent in America or on the face of the world that is not terrified of the pain and tragedy you experienced. And thank you for using Gavin's memory to spur action to protect other children. Our final speaker will be Stefan Turkheimer. Stefan Turkheimer is the Vice President of Public Policy for the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. RAIN is one of the nation's leading anti-sexual violence organizations that works diligently to ensure that perpetrators are brought to justice. Stefan, I want to thank you and RAIN for your avid support and hard work to advance the Take It Down Act. And we've had a lot of discussion today about the use of AI to create fake sexually explicit images of real people. We've heard from those who've been impacted by those heinous acts. Can you describe what you're seeing across the country, how technology is changing the threat, and why Congress needs to act?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question, and thank you.
You can push the power button on.
Oh, I already turned it on.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for your advocacy, Senator Cruz, and thank you for being here, Madam First Lady, and thank you, Representative Salazar, for your leadership. I'm Stefan Turkheimer, Vice President of the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, and what we're best known for is running the National Sexual Assault Hotline. And the hotline's really two parts. There's a phone call, and there's also an online hotline. And during the pandemic, more than half of the people reaching out to the online hotline were children, which was very surprising to us. And we thought, well, it's people stuck at home with their abuser. There's no other ways to report. After the pandemic ends, the children will fall away from the hotline, but they didn't. And what we started seeing in the data was that things that started as maybe 1 or 2 cases a month started doubling every month from 2019 to now. And it's all image-based sexual abuse. Image-based sexual abuse is often a part of in-person sexual abuse, but it often exists on its own. And all these kids that are calling the hotline, that are reaching out, they're suffering the same trauma, the same harm, very similar harm as what happens in person. And the difference is that it keeps happening over and over and over again, every time the images resurface. And all those people on the hotline want to be able to say, is this ends now? That we have a way of stopping it. But the reality is we do not. We do not have good options for those kids. We don't have an ability to get these images taken down, which is why I'm so grateful for a bill like this that will say, in 48 hours, this is done. You won't have to be re-traumatized every time you open a laptop. Every text you get, every time you hear that noise, is someone else telling you they've seen you online. That ends when this bill passes. And thank you for your advocacy, and thank you for everyone for being here.
Stefan, thank you. Thank you for your hard work and for RAIN's hard work protecting the victims of sexual violence and exploitation. It's enormously important work. I now want to give an opportunity for each of the congressional members here to either make a comment or ask a question of any of our victims or victim advocates, and we'll start with Speaker Johnson.
Thank you, Ted. Senator, great work on this. Representative Salazar, our extraordinary First Lady, for bringing this to the public's attention. I want to thank these extraordinary witnesses that we had today, Breeze and Brandon and Steph, and the ladies, Elliston and Francesca. You're so articulate, you could serve in Congress. In fact, I'll recruit you in a couple of years to be here. Look, I'm just going to say very briefly, state the obvious. As the dark side of technology advances, and these unspeakable evils become part of the culture, the law has to keep up. And I'm really grateful that we have thoughtful legislators here who take the reins on this and are willing to pass legislation to address it. We are anxious to put it on the floor in the House, to get it to President Trump's desk for signature, because we've got to do what we can to stop this. And I am a full supporter of it. I'm grateful to have a moment to be with you all. Yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate your being here, and I appreciate your leadership getting this passed into law so that we can protect these victims and prevent further victims. Majority Leader Scalise.
Well, I as well want to thank Senator Cruz and Congresswoman Salazar for your leadership. We came incredibly close last year to getting this across the finish line, but I think with the leadership and the voice of the First Lady, I just want to applaud First Lady Melania Trump for lending your voice and the strength of your office to this, because I have no doubt this is going to be the year that we actually get the Take It Down Act signed into law. And I think, as you heard from Elliston, Francesca, Breeze, the horrible stories, you could have easily just walked away and hidden and had somebody else pick up the mantle to do this. But you said, no, nobody else should have to do and go through what I've been through. So I'm going to lend my voice and my experience so that we can stop anybody else from having this happen again. And when you then hear, okay, well, it's going to take an act of Congress to fix this, you probably really get concerned and say, well, I've heard how long that takes. And believe me, it can take a long time unless you've got the right coalition. And this time, I think you've got the right coalition. You have the right leaders, a bipartisan coalition. I want to thank my colleague Ro Khanna, Senator Klobuchar, for being a part of this too, because when you look at where we are now, I go back to my days in the State House of Representatives, and this is before social media, but back then, the technology for cameras was getting very, very small and more high definition. And video voyeurism was the crime of the day back then. And you would have people that would put cameras in places where you couldn't even see them and record people, willing or not, and then use it later, usually for similar kind of things, to try to shame somebody, to try to extort somebody, to try to get revenge on somebody. And what shocked us is when we started hearing these stories, when mostly young girls, and I think Elliston was the one that ran the stats, 96% of the victims are typically young girls or children. But what shocked them the most was that that was not a crime. Even when you found out who did it, wasn't a crime. So guess what? We created the law of video voyeurism, and all of a sudden people started going to jail, and the word got out. And it still happens, unfortunately, but it doesn't happen at the extent that it used to, because now people know there's consequences. The same thing will happen with the Take It Down Act, and I know he's going to talk as well, but I want to applaud Chairman Brett Guthrie of the Energy and Commerce Committee, because he and I have talked about this a number of times, and we have a high commitment, not only to bring it through his committee, but when the bill comes through committee, it will be a priority to bring the bill to the House floor quickly to get it to the President's desk for signature, because it's going to give victims two things. One, it's going to give them the protection that they deserve. To say within 48 hours, this will be taken down. The platforms will have to take it down. And then it's going to do something else that just doesn't exist at the level it should. And that is the accountability to the perpetrator. Because those boys shouldn't still be in school, strutting around as if nothing happened, as if it's your problem to deal with that they created, because nobody's going to touch them. Will you tag the word felon to the end of that name? All of those athletic ventures go away. A lot of other things go away, and people will think twice. So again, thank you, Senator Cruz. Thank you, Congresswoman Salazar, and thank you, First Lady, for lending your voice. But I really applaud the victims, because we want you to come back. I know somebody in the White House that may be able to get us an invitation to be at that signing ceremony, but just envision the day where all of your work to not just sit quietly, but to speak out on behalf of others, so that there aren't victims in the future and that there are consequences in the future. Your work will pay off. We're going to get this done this year.
Well, and thank you, Steve, for your friendship and leadership. And just to underscore something that Steve just said, I feel confident that when this bill is signed into law, that each of the victim advocates, that you'll receive a signing pen that the President used to sign it into law. And by the way, they're about this big. They're massive. Your husband does nothing small. Representative McClain, the head of the House Republican Conference, the number 3 Republican in the House, if you have any comments or questions.
Well, I have a lot to say, but unfortunately I got a short time to say it in. So let me start with thank you. Thank you for putting this on the floor. Thank you, Maria. And thank you to the First Lady to drawing attention. It is disgusting that we have to put this common sense legislation on the floor, but here we sit today, right? Representative Khanna, thank you so much for being here, because this is not a partisan issue. Taking the innocence away from the most vulnerable, our children, this isn't a partisan game. This is games with our children's lives. And as parents, where are you parents? I can't even begin to imagine your emotions. I mean, I applaud you for your decorum. And for the victims, you want to talk about courageous? You want to talk about winners? You want to talk about young people with some guts? You're looking at them right here. We can't thank you enough. We're sorry from the bottom of our hearts for what you've had to go through, and for the parents, for the suffering that you have. But it is darkest before the dawn, and it starts today. So thank you for having the courage to stand up to be true winners. And we will, like the leader and the speaker said, we will get this done. We must get this done. So take a moment and reflect in your courage, in everything that you've accomplished at such a young age. And parents, I don't know how much more proud you can be of your children. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for your leadership. Now I want to recognize Congressman Kevin Hern, who is the chairman of the Republican Policy Committee, for any comments or questions.
Thanks, Senator, and First Lady, thank you so much for making this, pushing it forward. This is going to be something that, as the speaker said, this is something we need to modernize law for what's happening with technology. And somebody that's old enough to have 3 children, from 36 to 25, and now 3 grandchildren, and just had a 4th one that's a little girl. And the reason I say all that is the evolution just in our lifespan of the technology that's happened and what's happened to our generations. Bringing this to the forefront is so important for us to make a law that will fix this for future generations. It's tragic. And it shouldn't be, as you said, Senator, for those who have influence. It should be for every American to be able to protect their innocence. Artists and musicians and actors are doing it every day. They've been doing it now for 2 or 3 years. We need to make sure the least of us can have the same opportunity. And as the First Lady said, we should have everybody involved in this. This should be one of the easiest things that's ever gone through Congress. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to address any issues that might come from any of our colleagues. But again, thank you, Congresswoman Salazar, Senator Cruz, and First Lady. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you being involved.
Thank you, Kevin. Now I'd like to recognize Representative Brett Guthrie, the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, my colleague, Congresswoman Salazar. Thank you for doing the First Lady. Thank you for being here and all our advocates. I will say that the Energy and Commerce Committee is going to have a hearing very, very soon. This bill is going to pass out of the House of Representatives. And I would have no doubt that the President would sign this bill, but I certainly have no doubt the President will sign this bill in a way that has everybody who's been part of this to be a part of it. And I'll just say, it's just kind of interesting to point out, if you think about how this started, so Senator Cruz, I just became chairman of the committee. We had a meeting right after I became chairman, call and say, hey, let's get together and talk about our issues. This is the #1 issue. Our committees have a lot of jurisdiction. This is the #1 thing that he brought up is the most important thing to him this session, to get through the House, from the Senate to the House of Representatives. And it started by a constituent going to visit her senator. And if you think about that, here your constituent goes to visit her senator in America. And now you're sitting next to the First Lady of the United States. This is how it's supposed to work. We're seeing how it's supposed to work. It's a horrific situation, but the response to it is the way that we're supposed to respond. So we have to respond to it. And I'm sitting here just going to guarantee you the House Energy and Commerce Committee, working with our leadership, is going to respond to it. And thanks for all of you for your advocacy, for being here and bringing this attention. Thanks, Senator Cruz, for stressing this in our very first meeting, and this is going to be a top priority over the next few weeks for the Energy and Commerce Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your leadership at ENC, and it's incredibly important. Final speaker, Representative Ro Khanna. Thank you, Ro, for joining us, and you're recognized for any comments or questions.
Well, thank you, Senator Cruz. Thank you for your leadership on this for many years. Thank you, Congresswoman Salazar, for your leadership. Speaker Johnson and Leader Scalise, thank you for, on issues like this, working in a bipartisan way. First Lady Trump, I really appreciate your bringing your humanity and looking at this as a parent and as a leader and not through politics. Your presence here obviously is going to make a big difference, and I appreciate your being here and doing so for the country in a bipartisan way. Mr. Guffey, sorry for your loss. Thank you for being here. And to Francesca, Elliston, and Breeze, I mean, you inspire all of us. And I just would say this, look, Francesca invoked John F. Kennedy. My parents came here in the 1960s from India when Kennedy was talking about going to the moon, and I know Breeze talked about that. We've got to be able to figure out some ways of coming together as a country, as divided as we are. I represent Silicon Valley. I'm very proud of the innovation. I'm very proud of the technology, but America should lead in making sure that technology protects kids and protects people. And I think this bill, as you've crafted it, Senator Cruz, balances the free speech concerns with the protections, and I'm looking forward to supporting it.
Well, Ro, thank you for being here, and let me say thank you for the bipartisan support we have in this bill. In the Senate, Senator Klobuchar is the lead Democrat author, and we've passed it unanimously through the Senate, and in the House, Madeline Dean and Ro Khanna and other Democrats are supporting it, and I'm confident. There are issues that divide us on partisan bases, but this should not be one of them. This should be one that we all come together and say, look, we need to protect our kids. We need to keep them safe. I will say to the victim advocates, you guys are extraordinary, you are courageous, you are inspirational, and you're making a real difference, so thank you. I will say to the House members, you're seeing something that I'm sure you thought was impossible, which is the Senate doing anything briefly and expeditiously, but this was scheduled to last 1 hour, and we are at 59 minutes, precisely on time. And Madam First Lady, we are grateful for your leadership. Your presence and your advocacy brings people together, inspires them, and is producing real action to fight for these young women and young boys and Americans across the country, and we're grateful. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.